Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Triple Double Show, powered by SportsMemo TV and Wager Talk. It's called the Triple Double because we're going to detail and break down three games that we think might be on our card tonight, but we're going to discuss it as a team and figure out if there are any leans or potential best bets on these three games. And the double part is obviously because we're, a dynamic duo in NBA professional betting. So that's where we get the cool name. And let's get started, Ronald.
Yeah,
We're seeing scoring in the NBA at just in shocking levels. It's 5 points lower already than last year. But
yeah.
even more glaring is the fact that the over-unders so far this season, only 5 teams of the 30 that are in the NBA have a winning record when playing the over. And that would be Charlotte, 6-3, Orlando 6-3, New York 5-3, San Antonio 4-3-1. And in fact, we are going to talk about San Antonio and Charlotte. They're two teams of the 5 that have a winning over record, and then the Lakers are the 5th one at 5-4.
Yeah.
There are teams such as Denver, Brooklyn, Dallas, Minnesota, Golden State that have won over out of their games so far this season. And I'll mention that Phoenix, the Clippers, Houston, Milwaukee, Utah, Oklahoma City, and the Philadelphia 76ers have 2 overs. So it is really weighted at the bottom of that list that forces the under to be so ridiculously winning this year. In fact, for November, Ronald, 19-11 so far are the unders. There were 4-1 under on the 4th of November, 9-2 on the 3rd. October was 60-32 to the under. So
Yeah, that's crazy.
it is crazy, and I'm gonna start out with this, and when there's going to be a hell of an opportunity to start betting overs. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you see so far that would lead you to identify when that is or which teams that we want to target?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy just because the teams that you mentioned with the over records versus the under records. I think a lot of it is sort of like public perception on how teams play with the players on their team as well. Obviously, you have like Curry and that offensive juggernaut of the Warriors, but they're sort of an under team because people overlook their defense. So I think the totals kind of fluctuate between these teams, and that's kind of why I feel like some teams you feel like would be over teams go under, and sometimes the teams that go under go over, is just because of basically public perception and how the totals are set up that way. But overall, like you mentioned, that scoring is down from last season, and I looked at a few things yesterday, and those league wide, free throw attempts per game, that's kind of like a big thing, right? Because everyone's trying to adjust to the new foul rule in the paint. It's actually down 2 free throw attempts per game league wide. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when both teams are affected by 22 free throw attempts a game to 20, that's 4 total points. And then we look at 3-point shooting as well. Obviously, 3-point shooting has been a big trend the last few years. And I was looking at teams shooting 35% or greater. There was 22 teams last season doing that. And this season, there's only 12 so far. I think that could change over the course of the season. Maybe it's just too early and teams are still getting warmed up, but that could also affect the league-wide scoring. Effective field goal percentage, something that you brought up yesterday. I looked at that as well, and I looked at 52% or greater. There were 25 out of the 30 teams shooting 52% or better effective field goal percentage, and this season so far there's only 15. So you can see that there's a huge difference in these percentages and free throw attempts per game. Sorry, not huge, but minor differences in the percentages and the number of free throw attempts per game, but it kind of all adds up when you have it's affecting both teams.
Yeah, I agree, and I think one thing I'm going to start tracking, and it may not provide any value at all, but some of these stars are the reason why the league is shooting 5 points below last year's average. I think the rule change in the paint is contributing to it. But I think that's only a portion, in my opinion. But a guy like Devin Booker, he's shooting 41% from the field, which for some guys would be good, but not for him. And 32% from beyond the arc, which is definitely not good. Overall field goal percentage of 41%. He is shooting 45 from 2 point range, and has an effective field goal percentage of 46%, still scoring 22.6, but that's not his standard. And I'll mention one other guy, and it's in a game that we'll be talking about, is Lillard. And I mean, he's mind-blowing right now, and I don't know if it's because he's not in game shape. I don't want to criticize the guy, but it's kind of eventually get kind of in your head, even for these guys. So he's shooting 35% overall, 23% from beyond the arc, 46% from 2 point range. But last year, I think that was in the mid to upper 50% range. That's just like, it just blows my mind. I never saw this coming with the scoring, but I do think it presents now that it's happened. It's going to be an opportunity. I often talk about the markets and my trading on Wall Street. You get the market stretched, and it's like a rubber band that stretches, and then all of a sudden it stretches too far and it snaps back.
Yeah,
that's the situation we have here, I think, with the over. I don't know if it starts today, next week, next month, but this trend of unders hitting, 60 and 32 in October is 64%. Just blindly betting the under.
Yeah,
it's not that easy, folks. It's not that easy. But let's move into a game here that does have a low total, and it does involve two of the teams that actually have winning over records in San Antonio and Charlotte. So I'll let you start with this one, Ronald, and then I'll follow up with some stuff for the total on this game that I identified.
Sorry, did you say which game? San Antonio and Orlando?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So initially when I was looking at this game, you kind of notice that they both are 2-win teams. And one thing that I kind of bring to my analysis is sort of new the last couple of years is Pythagorean wins or win percentage. I use this in situations where on the surface teams may look evenly matched. Are you familiar with Pythagorean wins or win percentage, John?
I am, Ronald, but it'd be a great time to define it for those that are not.
Yeah. So I think Pythagorean win is like it's sort of it uses points for and points against to estimate what a team's win percentage should have been versus what their record is. To me that kind of gives me an idea of which teams are either over or underperforming based on their actual win-loss record. In this instance, right? Like I mentioned, these teams have 2 wins each, but I feel like one team is clearly better than the other. I feel like the Spurs are actually a little better than their record shows, and when you look at that Pythagorean wins, they have 4 versus the 2 actual wins, and that kind of validates, the fact that they're better than what their record shows. If you look at the teams that they played and who they lost to, they obviously played some really great teams and lost to some great teams. So, and that's kind of how it's kind of like a flag for me. That's when I look into the game a little bit deeper, and then I see the Spurs lead the league in a few categories. They're actually top in the league in points per game, fast break points per game, and assist to turnover ratio as well. They play solid defense as a team. They average 9.1 steals per game, and that's and ranked 10th in the league in defensive rating. So those are a few things that I see in the Spurs that kind of puts them above the Magic here. And obviously the Magic are struggling offensively. They're actually bottom third in the league in offensive and defensive rating. They're dead last in steals per game, at 5.6 steals, and they turn over the ball at 16 16 a game. 16 turnovers a game, and it obviously when you're playing a team that's number one in the league in fast break points and points in the paint, turnovers isn't a good thing. Like I said, you see a team with a similar record, 2-6, 2-7, but one has a clear edge. To me, the Spurs, they could probably win this by margin. But if the Magic are hitting their threes, I could still see the Spurs winning by 6 or more.
Yeah, it's a good breakdown. I often, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's accurate to even say, the analogy to Pythagorean wins is it reminds me of, in baseball, the FIP, fielding independent pitching. Aaron Nola, for example, was right. So that is a similar tool you can use in baseball, and that's certainly for a different show.
No, that's a really good analogy. Yeah.
In my big time and vast database, I found something that's really amazing. This angle has actually gone 5-0 to the over. So there hasn't been that many over wins.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this makes me really bullish on the over or not, because it's 5-0 and the trend is so under that it just makes me not want to play the over. But anyway, it's playing an over this year with a total of 220 to 229.5, with a 3-point shooting team that's making less than 33% of their shot attempts from beyond the arc. That's hit 69% over the last 25 seasons, 28-12 over the last 3, 5-0 this year. That's pretty strong. But again, the trend overall in the league is to the under, and I guess I'll lean to the over on this game. The line opened at 227. It's up to 228. So maybe the market's right here, but perhaps we'll update in the comment section of the show later today.
Yeah, are you talking about the Spurs Magic? I think the total might be a little bit lower than that for the Spurs Magic, isn't it?
You know what? You're right.
I think you're talking about the Hornets Kings game or something.
That's exactly right. So San Antonio, Orlando. That's great catch there. That's opened at 212, now 213.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
and I agree with that low total. The Magic are, obviously they're not a good shooting team. They're 25th in the league in offensive rating, and they play the third slowest pace. I think to me the totals are just about right, and that's kind of why I just looked to the side on this one.
Yeah, and what's up with San Antonio? Popovich must be not sleeping with a team that's 2-6, and they always have had good passing, like the best. And their defense is just terrible, and that's why they have a winning record on the over. Have you seen anything there fundamentally that that could be fixed?
I think to me, like I mentioned earlier, I just feel like their record doesn't show how great they've actually really been playing. They're first in the league in assist to turnover ratio, so they're taking care of the ball and they're sharing the ball well. They're one of the higher steal team per game in the league. It's just I think matchups right now that they're not catching up with the teams that they're playing against. I think the Mavs game, right? For instance, they just lost by 1. So I don't think they're getting blown out by these teams, but they're playing well. Eventually, the wins in their actual record will probably catch up to how well they're playing. I still don't think they're a playoff team, but they're definitely better than the 2-6 that the record shows.
Yeah, I like that too. Now on this game too, there is a pretty strong angle I'll mention on the over, and this one I like better than the previous one. You're going to play over the total with a home team coming off a game where they shot 35% or less from the field. And that's one of my favorite ones because these teams don't shoot 35% normally in back-to-back games. I mean, Detroit right now might be the exception because they are doing it every night.
Yeah.
So you stay off of them. I wouldn't play the over with Detroit with Steve Merrill's money, for example. But in this matchup, we're playing over, like I said, a game where a team shot 35% or worse in the previous game. Yeah. And the total is greater than 210, and they are an average NBA three-point shooting team, shooting 33 to 37.5% from beyond the arc.
Mm-hmm.
I like the part about the 35% in the previous game, and I've seen that bounce back happen, quite a bit. So I will say I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think with this low total, the 212, you said 212, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 212 with this low total. I think that could happen. I think the over, I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like spot on, and that's why I went to the side instead of the total. But 212, with these two teams, I could see that happening going over.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably going to be. I'm probably going to the window with that one. I can pretty much honestly say that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about the last game, which is at 10 o'clock tonight as well. That is the Pacers and the Trailblazers. No, the Hornets and Kings is Pacers and Trailblazers. I think too. We were going to talk about, right?
Yeah. We're going to talk about Pacers, Blazers, and then the Kings and Hornets. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So. Pacers, Trailblazers. That game is tonight at 10. Like I said, Portland's 4.5. And we have a relatively high total, 223.5. This is CJ McCollum, guy from Lehigh University, matter of fact, is one of their stars. And we already talked about Lillard's horrible shooting. So off the top here, Ron, do you think this is a chance where you can play Lillard, maybe even as a prop bet over his points, assists and rebounds, for example?
So looking into this game a little bit, what I've seen was sort of the road and home split between these two teams. Obviously, the Blazers are struggling, right? They lost 3 in a row, but all those games were on the road. And back home, they're actually 3-1 straight up. And all 3 wins have been by double digits, and the one loss was just by 3 points to the Kings. I think that might have been opening day. And then the Pacers are 0-4 on the road, straight up. But obviously they're healthy now. So that's something that I was overlooking a few days ago. I went against them and lost that game. But they're looking really great. They're healthy. The other issue here is it's their first game on the West Coast trip, and obviously winning 2 games by double digits, and then going on a road trip. It kind of, I feel like we could find some value in the line here, especially with how the Blazers play at home. I think Lillard might be able to find some comfort at home as well. So that's kind of like my take on that. I feel like, what was the total? 223?
Yes. Yep. 223.5.
Yeah, I feel like if this was last year, this game probably would have opened up around like 230 or something like that, because both of these teams are pretty well known for their offense and not known for their defense. So I feel like in this situation here, this could be a spot where we start looking at the over. I think maybe the numbers are starting to finally fall enough for us to look the other way.
Yeah, and that reminds me of one of my favorite things I like to talk about and like to do. And I might actually do it for this game, in-game betting. So, first of all, you always have to have a plan going into it. And Ronald knows this, of course. So this is for people that are curious to know how we do this. And you can't use it to hedge a bad bet. I mean, then what you're doing is you're watching the first quarter and your team's getting blown out, and you take the other team thinking that, well, now I won't lose any money. Well, what ends up happening is you lose both sides. So just please, for your own benefit, don't do that. So my plan on this, Ronald, would be, if we're playing the over, I would bet 50% of my normal bet size pre-flop, meaning before the game starts, at whatever the market is. Then I'm going to add 25% at 216.5. I'm going to add the final 25% at 211.5. So what those numbers are is, from my Wall Street days, there's a metric called implied volatility. It measures where an option is cheaply priced or is richly priced relative to the underlying security. So if you're buying like the 260 calls on Apple, implied volatility is a very important thing to look at, and I'll leave it at that. Maybe in a future show we can actually show how it's calculated so people can use it. But that is a good strategy because there's no sport that is more volatile in its scoring and its flows than the NBA. So you can let this work in your favor. And there's been games where I have not bet the game, and I did it all in game because I took advantage of the volatility. So same thing with the side, and I'll also give a second one. Let's say we like Portland, and I'm not saying we do. Just an example here. They're minus 4-point favorites. They're at home. There's going to be a point in this game, especially with what you said, Ronald, about these teams being high scoring, and the line probably should be around 230 if it was last year. I agree 100%. I'm willing to tell you right now, Indiana is going to go on a 10-0 run or more. So whenever your opponent does that to you on the team that you bet on, it usually leads to a timeout and gives you plenty of time to get that in-game bet made. So another example would be 50% pre-flop at -4. And then if Indiana in the first quarter does get out to a fast start, you might be able to get Portland at pick'em, and you might be able to get Portland even cheaper than that as a dog for the two parts of 25%. And most importantly, these two strategies of mine are only for the first half. When you start playing around the third quarter, the fourth quarter, it's just not enough time, and your probability of being correct is reduced substantially. So that's my in-game strategy for today.
Nice. Yeah,
it's fun to do too. It reminds me of the days when I traded into pits up in New York, and crude oil and that kind of stuff. You want to be selling into strength and buying into weakness, and that's exactly what I just described. But let's get back to the other game, which is the last one on the card, and that's the Hornets and the Kings. And the Kings 4-4, they're 1-2 at home. Hornets 3-4 and 5-4 on the season, 3-2 on the road. Sacramento is just a 1.5-point favorite. I have an over/under here that is high for this league this year, 227.5.
Yep.
What do you think here on this matchup?
So what stuck out to me here is both of these games going under in the previous game. I really like situations like that. It's kind of like a flag for me to look into that game a little bit deeper when both teams go under the game before, and both teams are known for their offense. Sometimes you can kind of find value on the total. Is that something that you do too as well, John?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, like Charlotte scored 92 points against Golden State, and the Kings, their game went under too, and they allowed the Pelicans 99 points in that game. And the Kings aren't known for their defense, right? And the Hornets are usually known for their offense. So I think when you see opposites like that happen, you kind of think that it'll go back to the norm a little bit, right? It's just kind of like that. Yeah, kind of like that trend you mentioned earlier, where when a team's shooting 35%, the next game you would expect them to do a little bit better. But that's kind of like what I see. Those are the quick flags that I look at to pinpoint a game. And so when I looked into it, I think the Hornets, they've only gone under the 100-point total twice so far this season, and both times in the following games, they ended up scoring over 120 points. One of them went into overtime, but they still scored over 120 in regulation. And on the Kings side, they're a well-rounded offense, but they lack defense. And the reason why they're able to limit Pelicans to just 99 points, I mean, they were missing Ingram, but also they're just really struggling offensively. They're not scoring with any other team at all, period. So I mean, and when you look at pace, both teams play a similar pace, and when you get comfortable, when you have a comfortable pace like that for both teams, you get to kind of find a rhythm. And to me, that's sort of a recipe for an over game. And I understand why the total I think got steamed down a little bit to 226 last night. I don't know if there is still that number, but I understand it. You know, both teams went under, and all the games are going under.
Yeah,
64% of the games are going under, so I understand it. But in this game specifically, I just feel like the matchup itself and their previous results. I think this 226, 227 is some value. Just like the Portland and Pacers game, I feel like if this was last year, this would be around 230, low 230s.
I agree.
Yeah, so to me, I like this game going over. I feel like both teams can end up, scoring a combined 230 to 235 points. And yeah, I think we're finally starting to see where we can find some value on the over.
Yeah, I completely agree. Adding on to your point, Charlotte is the number one scoring team so far this year in the NBA, 114.7. They're also the worst defense, and a lot of that is because they play pretty fast, and 114.9 is what they allow. Sacramento's the 12th best offense at 109.9. They're the 24th defense, and I think that's the matchup. Number one offense against the 24 defense, and that to me would support this game going into the 230s, where,
Hmm.
like you said, last year it would have been 235 maybe.
Hmm.
And maybe that's where it should be now. They take care of the ball, Charlotte does. Number two in assist to turnover ratio, and so does Sacramento.
Yeah.
So they're fourth. So you have
Hmm.
two of the top five assist to turnover ratio teams playing each other, and their defenses are not really that good. So
Yeah.
I like this over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm with you. So to cap off our show, Ronald, I guess do you have any bets that you're going to take to the window? Any
I don't.
leans?
Yeah, I don't have anything locked in yet, but I do like I actually like a lot of games to the over today. I think, yeah, I know you use SDQL, John, and that's something I use too. I also use Bet Labs. We're kind of like data geeks,
Yeah,
but
I'm proud to say that.
yeah, I have some systems looking at like about 5 or 6 games to the over today. And obviously the Sacramento Kings and Charlotte game is one of them, and a few other games. So I'm still kind of narrowing down what I want to go ahead and do as far as bets. But the leans here today was the Kings Charlotte over, the Spurs against the spread, and then the Pacers and the Blazers game. I'm leaning towards the Blazers here, just because of their home road splits. But I might end up staying away just because I think I need to see more time on the Pacers side with how healthy they are. Did they just win these last 2 games by margin out of luck, or are they really that great when they're fully healthy?
Yeah, I like it. I'm probably going to consider playing the over in all three of the games that we just talked about. My least favorite of the three is the lower one, the San Antonio Orlando matchup.
Yeah. Hmm.
But my lean would certainly be to the over in that game. But Charlotte Sacramento and Indiana Portland, I
Hmm.
think both of those, especially if that starts steaming lower in the Indiana-Portland game, I will take it. And then a prop bet I like, and I don't do many prop bets, but I've been pretty good at it over the years, is Lillard. And I will detail that in the comments section later because those player props are not out yet. But it's more than likely going to be points, assists, rebounds, and playing over for him. So I think that'll be a wrap for our NBA triple-double show. Ronald, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Clearly, when you have somebody like Ronald and you talk to him and you exchange information like this, it definitely helps me. And I know it's going to help you guys out there as well. You can't do this alone. You need exchange of information from anyone you can get a hold of, experts especially. So we appreciate you watching this show. And we continue to look forward to seeing you next week on the NBA Triple Double. Thanks for watching, and may all the wins be yours.